Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Woohoo! This is our last day before the vacation. Speaking Spanish to myself in the car, just trying to get my lips nice and loose and the tongue rolling. So today, the entire GOP struggling to get a health care bill through. The President of the United States of America, he buckled down, put his nose to the grindstone, he threw his back into it, and engaged in another Twitter battle with a morning cable TV show. Yes, that's what he did. Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough. Oh, yeah, he's after them, everybody. I feel safe. Don't you feel safe? Yeah, big shooting in the Bronx right there. Multiple, people injured so far. This is what we know in the Bronx. The Bronx, everybody. And the shooter is dead, so it's not active. This is not an active shooter situation, so everybody can check out of that story now. Check out of that story. Oh, we only like it when the shooter's alive. All right. Yeah, we know that. Is it active? Is it an active shooter? No, he's dead. Oh, next story, please. Short attention span theory. Oh, but Trump is tweeting. Okay. So Mika and Joe wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post basically telling Trump to grow the F up. Just grow up. Now, if he had any creativity at all, he would craft some double-barrel tweet combining the sexism we know and love, mixed with the violence he's so good at inciting, and his Mika Brzezinski obsession, mixed with the Amazon tax obsession, and just let it rip, but he's not even good at that. And that's what he does best, is tweet. Oh, my God, man, this is so sick. It's so sad. But this morning, of course, Mika and Joe finally responded to the Trump tweet about her bloody face, which, by the way, that wasn't true. There was a lot more about that tweet that wasn't true. I did not realize the extent to which he packs so many. I mean, he's like I said, he puts his back into it. This guy really puts his nose to the ground. He gives it all he's got. He's the old, heave-ho, I mean, when he designs these tweets, he packs in the most amount of lies possible. Wow. This is really, a world heavyweight champion.
You know what? I think it's been fascinating and frightening and really sad for our country. I mean, I'm fine. My family brought me up really tough. This is absolutely nothing.
We had so many people saying, hey, hope you're okay. Had calls and texts and emails. We're okay. The country's not. He, for some reason, takes things so much more personally with women. He's so much more vicious with women. I never told the story, but a very well-known congressman who went over to the White House with 20 other members when the president was pitching House members to get through the House, said that he went on this rant about Morning Joe in front of 20 members of Congress while he was trying to pitch the health care bill.
Jesus.
And went on and on and on and sort of just brushed me aside. He's a joke. But then this senior member that everybody knows, and we were on the phone, he said, I've never made a call like this. I've been in politics my whole life. He scared me.
Wow.
Because he was vicious when he turned from you to Mika.
Wow.
His face was red.
Wow.
He started talking about blood coming out of her ears, out of her eyes. And this congressman said, I've been in politics for decades. I've never seen anything like this. And he said, I don't even know why I'm calling you, but I was just scared.
Wow.
I was scared for you guys, and I wanted you to know. But yesterday was just another example of just how deeply personal he is. He attacks women because he fears women.
He has a fixation. The White House claims that we attack him. No, we report on his lies. We are upset when he doesn't tell the truth and he bullies people. That is true. We sometimes mock him and have fun with things like we did with President Obama with his bowling.
Yes.
And we were having fun with the Time magazine cover because it was hilarious. I knew in real time that the president would be tweaked by that. And I wondered, oh boy, I feel there's going to be a response. And I'll tell you that. Think about it. It is unbelievably alarming that this president is so easily played. He's so easily played by a cable news host. Now, what is that saying to our allies? What is that saying to our enemies? That this president is so easily played.
Seriously, dude, what does it say to the world that this president is so easily tweaked, that he's so easily played, that he's so easily duped, that he's so easily, upset, that he turns red in the face over cable freaking news? You know what it says? It says this president is an intellectual lightweight. He's a man-child. He can be, tweaked. He can be, set off by the littlest thing. You can bait him. You can, get him involved in things that are way over his head. You can hack an election and get away with it. You can do just about anything in this country because the president is not standing on that wall. The president doesn't understand. The only wall he understands is the one Mexico's going to pay for. Another great lie. But I mean, this is really frightening. It's not about Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough. It's about Donald Trump and his baby hands that keep tweeting, ridiculous lies at the TV. He is like your old freaking uncle sitting there yelling at the TV. I mean, it's just so ridiculous that this is the leader of the free world. How in the hell did we get here? But then, of course, Trump must have heard that this morning because he tweeted again. Here's his tweet from today. Watched low rated at Morning Joe for first time in long time. Now that's a lie. First time, long time. Lie. Because he was watching yesterday at 8:10 when they were making fun of his Time magazine fake news cover that he created and put up in all his golf clubs. Okay, there's 8 of them hanging there. He's been on Time magazine's cover like 14 freaking times. It's still not enough for him. Why? Because they didn't praise him for The Apprentice ! They didn't praise him for that he's hitting it on all cylinders. He's even in TV. And it was like in 67th place. That's why Time magazine didn't praise him for The Apprentice. It was a failing, also ran TV show after the very first season. In fact, the ratings were never as good after the first episode of the first season. After that, it was just a mess. It was a disaster, as he would say. And that's why he created a fake cover, sprinkling all over him, these accolades that he didn't earn or deserve. But anyway, he tweets today, watched low rated at Morning Joe for first time, long time, caps, fake news. He called me to stop a National Enquirer article. I said no. Bad show. This Donald Trump is making George W. Bush look like Abraham Lincoln. You get that, right? That is not the story. Joe tells this story about how he has friends inside the White House and they are telling him that this man is unhinged. But he also says, how many lies he packed into this one tweet. I'll play you all this. But this is the portion of the show this morning where Joe Scarborough, he's a Republican. He used to be a congressman here in Florida, okay? So we all know Joe Scarborough for years and years down here in Florida. He's a lot of things, but never knew him to be somebody that, just lies and lies and lies. So here's Joe talking about the real National Enquirer story. This ought to take your breath away, truly, because Trump is tweeting that Joe called him. Okay, this is just like Comey called me and wanted to come up for dinner because he wanted to stay on as FBI director. He wanted to keep his job. So he called me and he said, "Can we have dinner?" Now, that's not true. You heard Comey's testimony under oath that the president called him in the middle of the day and said, I'd like to have your whole family over, but tonight it's just going to be me and you. Can you get up? And of course, this was after Sally Yates had gone to the White House and told them that Michael Flynn is blackmailable by the Russians. That day was the day that Donald Trump called Comey and said, come to the dinner at the White House. Just you, just you. And, he then lies to Lester Holt and says, no, Comey called me and he wanted to have dinner because he wanted to keep his job. That's not true. So today he tweets that Joe Scarborough called him and asked him to help him kill a story in the freaking National Enquirer. But that's not true either.
We got a call that, hey, the National Enquirer is going to run a negative story against you guys. And it was, Donald is friends with, the president is friends with the guy that runs the National Enquirer. And they said, if you call the president up and you apologize for your coverage,
oh my God,
then he will pick up the phone and basically spike the story.
Oh my God.
I will just say 3 people at the very top of the administration calling me. And the response was like, are you kidding me? I don't know what they have. Run a story? I'm not going to do it. The calls kept coming and kept coming, and they were like, call. You need to call. Please call. So, come on, Joe, just pick up the phone and call him. It's blackmail.
And let me explain what they were threatening. They were calling my children.
Oh, my God.
They were calling close friends.
You're talking about the National Enquirer. Yeah.
And they were pinning the story on my ex-husband, who would absolutely never do that. So I knew immediately it was a lie and that they had nothing. And these calls persisted for quite some time. And then Joe had the conversations that he had with the White House where they said, oh, this could go away.
So I just want to be very clear here.
Wow.
The National Enquirer is harassing your children, your daughters, who are teenagers.
Yeah. And it's,
and then Joe in turn is getting calls from the White House.
Saying,
by the way, they're also, I was at Mika's house for a few minutes and came out, and there was a guy in a van that was staked out there.
Oh my God.
Watching. It was clear that he was from a tabloid, and he started asking questions. And then after all this started happening, that's when we started getting calls from the White House saying, if you call, you need to call the president, and we'll
And our
do what we can.
response, talking to my ex-husband, talking to Joe, talking to my kids, was, screw it, let them run it. Just go ahead and run it.
By the way, they ended up running something. And they interviewed a guy who said, I seen him there for about a year. He comes in, he buys about, 3 6-packs of beer a week here in my store. I've never bought a beer. You can check it out. I'll be Gary Hart here. Follow me around. I've never bought a beer in my life. From a convenience store, from a bar.
I wish it was,
Joe, what you just said
is
forget it. I don't want to talk about tweets anymore. Right. What you just said is one of the most frightening things I've ever heard.
Well, this is what we got.
Basically, that this story is going to run unless you grovel to the president, and then the president will kill the story.
But not just the story will run. We will stop We'll have the National Enquirer stop harassing your children if you grovel to the president of the United States.
And what makes it even worse for them is Donald Trump called me during the campaign and bragged about his friend who ran the National Enquirer. He said, and he'd always say, have you seen the Ben Carson story? Have you seen the Ben Carson story? Have you seen that story in the Enquirer? And then he would talk about it. Did they do the JFK story too?
Yes.
I don't know if they did the JFK story too. But there were all these stories that were planted in the National Enquirer for people that Donald Trump wanted to attack.
Oh, well, it's nice to know that the president is using all the tools he has in his office, like calling the head of the National Enquirer and saying, if Joe and Mika apologize to me, then stop harassing their children. If not, keep harassing her children. And keep printing fake news stories about Joe Scarborough being a drunk. Joe Scarborough is not a drunk. Joe Scarborough doesn't drink beer. Like I said, he's a known quantity to us here in Florida. This is insane. The president is using his friend at the National Enquirer to stalk Mika Brzezinski's kids. if Joe will grovel and Joe will apologize for the coverage that the president doesn't like, he could arrange it so Mika's kids, they're teenagers, that Mika's teenage kids won't be stalked by these freaking National Enquirer. And by the way, that is where the Ted Cruz's father was part of the Kennedy assassination. That's where that story came from. And of course, the president quoted that.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Hey, do you own gold? You know, if you don't, you're in a bad position. Stocks are at an all-time high. Gold at recent lows. So maybe to you it seems like things are going great, but I can assure you if another stock market crash comes, if another 2008 happens, are you protected? I don't think so. Don't wait until after something bad happens, because then stocks fall and gold goes up. Get gold now while it's low and diversify your portfolio today. Because once you have gold in your portfolio, you can rest assured you're protected. So call my friends at ITM Trading at 1-888-OWN-GOLD. They're experts at diversifying investment portfolios with precious metals. They can help you in building a custom strategy based on your goals, your objectives. Please don't follow the herd and don't wait till it's too late. Take action today and bring safety to your financial future. Call ITM Trading today at 1-888-OWN-GOLD and speak to a precious metals expert and ask for a free gold kit. 1-888-OWN-GOLD. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1917. That was the day that American folklorist Archie Green was born in Winnipeg, Canada. His father was a Ukrainian refugee who had fought in the 1905 Russian Revolution. As a young boy, his family moved to Los Angeles. There, he enjoyed listening to cowboy songs on the radio. Archie grew up to become a shipwright and a carpenter, but he never forgot those cowboy songs. At the age of 40, he returned to college at the University of Illinois to study labor history. He wanted to learn about the songs and the stories at the heart of the U.S. labor movement. He was interested in what he dubbed labor lore, the folklore of working people. For 7 years, Archie led the effort to get Congress to pass the American Folklife Preservation Act. Finally, in 1976, Congress unanimously supported the act. The act allowed for the founding of the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. The center helps to collect the stories of the working class. Archie wrote books and essays about workers, including miners, tinsmiths, millwrights, and the Sailors Union of the Pacific. In 2007, he helped to edit the Big Red Songbook. The book includes the lyrics of nearly 200 labor songs. These songs had been included in various editions of the Little Red Songbooks published by the industrial workers of the world between 1909 and 1973. Archie Green understood that workers' stories deserved to be remembered and told. He spent 5 decades as a scholar and advocate for these stories. His work has helped to preserve the record of working class life in America for generations to come.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
We have friends inside the White House that have told us over the past month they're getting more concerned about his emotional state, and also more concerned at the same time
self-control
about what's happening across the world. There are bad things brewing across the world, which we can't say on the air.
Oh no.
They know at the DOD, but this is one of the most dangerous times in recent American history, and we have a president who is attacking a cable news host because she dared make a joke about a Time magazine cover.
Oh my God. You know, this is going to be an amazing thing. You know, we arguably, the 3 worst presidents of our entire history were all Republicans in the past 50 years. And 2 of them got a second term. And the third one is already raising money for his second. Okay? And what's really creepy is he should be focused on this first term and finishing that first. I signed up for all the fundraising. He is fundraising right now. He is tweeting out, to this group of people that sign up for the fundraisers. I'm one of them. That he needs money right now. He needs money right now. It's probably like the caller said yesterday for his legal defense fund. It is unfreaking believable how bizarre this president has been and continues to be. The amount of lying. I mean, the story about the president. And by the way, Joe Scarborough said that he has receipts, basically. He's got the text messages from the White House saying, if you apologize to the president, call the president, call the president, call the president, apologize to the president, and he'll spare Mika's children from being followed around by a guy in a van down by the river from the National Enquirer. Otherwise, they're going to continue to harass her children. This is a very strange dude that we have as president of the United States. So this morning, Scarborough said, the second tweet, about the Enquirer story that I called, he said, he goes, that is another lie. I have text messages from top aides. I have phone records. All those records show I haven't spoken to the president in months. In months. These are his records. He didn't even have to call the Russians to get them. They're his own, right? It's amazing what's going on. Amazing. I mean, how many lies? How many lies? How much more?
It was amazing how many lies he packed into 2 tweets. We did not want to go to Mar-a-Lago. Donald kept calling Joe. Joe went, and he stayed for about 30 minutes. And then he's like, where's Mika? He seemed to want me to go. I didn't want to go.
For some reason, he was more interested in Mika being there than me. So.
And so the next night we went, I think on jeans, we walked through this, we thought, okay, let's try to get an interview, talk to Melania, who I like very much. And we were like shuffled into a side room. It was actually a bedroom, talked for 20 minutes.
Ew.
And we left through this party of people dressed to the nines, talk about facelifts. Whoa, Palm Beach. Okay, hello.
We love our Palm Beach viewers. That's okay.
We love you in Palm Beach.
It was amazing.
Facelifts
and
are
speaking of my face, while we're there, I had my chin tweaked, the skin under my chin. I believe I FaceTimed you. We talked about it. Called Nicole, called all my friends, had a lot of fun with it. I'm pretty transparent about what I do, and I think it looks awesome. It looks
I want that. I want that, Mika. Do a segment. Do a segment on the under the chin and what you do. I will do that. I'm in Palm Beach. She's right. Everybody, you could tell which doctor. There's this one, I won't even say his name because they love to sue, and I've been sued for this kind of comment. So I'll just say Dr. Macaroni and Cheese. That's all I'll call him. But Dr. Macaroni and Cheese, he's very, very good at a face. Very, very good with the face. But he only does the one face. He only does one. So if you want to look like a character, what's her name? Linda from Dynasty. You know that? Remember her from the 80s? He does that face. And that face comes out very well. And if you kind of resemble her, he's your guy. But if you have any other face, it's going to come out looking like that face. So because he only does the one. Only the one. But that's what every woman down here looks like who had, the plastic surgery in the 90s, okay, down here with Dr. Macaroni and Cheese, because he only does the one face. For all I know, he could have passed on into the, heavenly circle of love that is reserved for plastic surgeons in Palm Beach. But, everybody had that look. They all had the, the windblown Linda look, all the Dynasty ladies. So, but that's what does go on down here. And I cannot believe that the president is like doing this and lying. So the story that he that they came 3 times and she had a bloody face. First of all, I am really sure that no one that has a facelift in this day and age has a bloody face and goes to Mar-a-Lago 3 times. I just don't think it happens. And I think Donald Trump is running afoul of malpractice, and Mika ought to have said the name of her doctor this morning, because if she did, first of all, I would have called. I would have flown up to New York. I would have done the under the chin thing. I want that. But second, he could have then sued Donald Trump for defamation. Okay? There's no question. So there you have that. And it's all a lie. The president was calling Joe. Calling him. And Joe Scarborough says he's got all the texts. He's got all the phone messages. He's got everything. And he said, he was like asking, why does he keep and this is really the question. This is the scariest part of what Donald Trump does. Never mind he's a bully. Never mind he hates women. Never mind he hates himself. Never mind he's a man baby. Never mind he's rude. Never mind he's a mean girl. Never mind he's just an arrogant prick. Okay, forget all that. He keeps on doing things that are easily disproven over and over and over again. It's like he's begging, please stop me. Didn't I say that when he said, I could shoot anybody I want on Fifth Avenue? Didn't I say it was like he wanted people to stop him? Didn't I say it's like he wants people to not vote for him? Like he wants people to say, he's just too crazy. Everything he does, it just seems to me he's begging for us. He's like daring us. Take me out of office. Remove me. Impeach me. Do it. I dare you. I'm doing fundraisers at my own hotel to enrich myself. Clear conflict of interest. I'm the landlord. I'm the lessee. And I'm using it for fundraisers that benefit me 40 months away from any possible re-election campaign that could, ever happen in the United States. I'm doing everything. I speak beautifully about Russia, who we all know hacked into your election. We all know what happened there. I'm lying about Comey calling me. I need to keep my job. Can I come to dinner? I'm lying about Joe Scarborough. I'm threatening Mika Brzezinski's kids. What's it going to take, America, before you stop me? It's just so creepy. It's just so frightening.
We have friends inside the White House that have told us over the past month they're getting more concerned about his emotional state. And also more concerned at the same time
self-control
about what's happening across the world. There are bad things brewing across the world, which we can't say on the air. They know at the DOD, but this is one of the most dangerous times in recent American history. And we have a president who is attacking a cable news host because she dared make a joke about a Time magazine cover.
How sick is all this? How incredibly sick and frightening and scary. How incredibly unhinged the president is. I just, so you know what? I mean, Donald, we beg you. Just tweet out. Crazy Joe apologized. And walk away. Just say it. I mean, you lie anyway. Just make up that lie. This is insanity. This is just crazy. And the whole thing goes back to Donald Trump being irate because they were calling him out as a liar over fake news, fake Time magazine covers. The guy does not just create his own problems. He goes to great lengths to create his own problems. And then he gets caught with, lying or throwing articles into the National Enquirer and quoting. I mean, but you know what really makes me sick? You know what really gives me the ooty-gots? You know what really makes my stomach just flip? Is that, through this whole campaign, the amount of insults that he hurled at Marco Rubio, how he called Ted Cruz's wife ugly, when he tweeted out a really, really unfortunate photo, and we all have them, a really unfortunate photo that will live on the internet forever of Heidi Cruz and Melania in a split screen, and then called Ted Cruz's wife ugly, and Carly Fiorina ugly, and then called Marco Rubio Little Marco, said Ted Cruz's father. I mean, you attack my father, you are dead to me. You are dead to me. It's over. That's the end of it. There is no friendship. There is no working with you. There is no, nothing. And now they lick his hiney, that giant ass of his that is so freaking huge it sits beside him. You could put an ashtray on Donald Trump's ass, flick the ashes into it, and still have room for the rum and coke on that table of an ass, and they lick it. They kiss it. They make love to it. They adore it. And this guy insulted every member of their family, from their father to their wife. And Cruz puts up with it. And Cruz, lets him get away with it. It is the sickest, most twisted party I have ever seen in my life, this freaking Republican Party. The amount of crap.
And we need, and I talk to you this way. Because that's the mentality, whether I'm nice or not. I think I'm nice, actually. So Chris, who's a friend of mine, he hit me hard. And I said, I got to hit him at least once. So I won't do this a lot, but look, here's the story. The George Washington Bridge. He knew about it. Hey, how do you have breakfast with people every day of your lives? They're closing up the largest bridge in the world, the biggest in the United States, traffic flowing during rush hour. People couldn't get across for 6-7 hours. Ambulances, fire trucks. They're with them all the time, the people that did it. They never said, hey, boss, we're closing up the George Washington Bridge tonight. No, they never said. They're talking about the weather, right? Yeah, I think he's a nice guy, probably. Who knows? I don't care.
I was wondering what you would say to President Obama.
You're fired.
If you think Orlando was the end of it with this weak attitude and this pathetic president that we have, it wasn't, folks. It wasn't.
Warren, she seems to have made it her job.
Who, Pocahontas? Pocahontas? Well, no, look, she is.
It's very offensive.
You tell me. Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry about that. Pocahontas? Is that what you said? Elizabeth Warren? She is a senator that's highly overrated. Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Oh, maybe that's what I said. This is 14 years ago. They didn't do a retraction.
He is a disgusting, vile human being. He dropped a dime on Chris Christie right there. Did you say? And now Chris Christie is in charge of the opioid epidemic. The one thing Jared didn't have room on his plate for, so they gave it to Chris Christie, who he accused of being a criminal, right? Because people went to jail for the closure of the George Washington. And he sits there, he goes, he knew. And then you remember the hostage video of Chris Christie where Donald Trump was, interviewing him to be his vice president, and Chris Christie was standing on the stage looking like proof of life. I mean, it was just like all I expected him to do was hold up the New York Times so I could see the date and make sure he was still alive. I mean, it was the sickest thing. This is how he treats his friends. This is how he treats the Republicans in Congress who passed his health care. And now, by the way, he's saying that if you can't repeal and replace Obamacare, right? If you can't do it, just repeal it. Just repeal it and leave everybody without health care. This is a madman, you maniacs, you. This is a very sick and twisted gentleman. This man has an insane amount of problems. I don't know what they are. I'm not qualified to go through the MDSM and diagnose. But whatever it is, he can't stop lying. He will leave the American people in peril. He doesn't say anything, negative about the people who who attacked us with a cyber war. I mean, everybody agrees that Russia is our scariest, most equipped adversary in the world right now. He loves on them. And now he's got fake Chris Kobach. Did you see that last night? I was tweeting my brains out. I got to tell you about this voter registration thing they're trying to do. Holy crap, man.
Clear for takeoff. The Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
We're back, and everything is possible again. Isn't it beautiful? Well, if you want to keep it this way, buy a stinking podcast. Oh yes, you have to buy a stinking podcast. And you get that at RandiRhodes.com, where we're open all day, all night long. RandiRhodes.com. Get your stinking podcast.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a diversified media enterprises production. I'm Doug Cunningham.
Working people brought this bill to a screeching halt. We mobilized in record time, and we're not about to stand down.
AFL-CIO President Rich Trumka on the stalled Republican Senate health care bill. Labor isn't letting up in its campaign to stop this bill.
We're running ads. We're flooding Senate offices with phone calls. We're mobilizing in the states. We're going all out. It's time for Congress to abandon this reckless plan and come together on a bipartisan basis to improve the Affordable Care Act. That's what voters want.
Trumka says the AFL-CIO isn't fooled by what Trump and his Republicans are doing with this so-called health care bill.
Make no mistake, this bill isn't a health care plan at all. It's a massive transfer of wealth from workers to Wall Street. It obliterates Medicaid. According to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, it will increase the number of uninsured Americans by 22 million, and it cuts taxes for millionaires while it raises taxes on hardworking men and women who have negotiated high-quality health care. This bill is a sham, and it's a shame. So working families are fighting back. We're fighting for our children, our parents, and our community. This is a vicious, vicious assault on America's health care security.
Sandra Falwell is a D.C. registered nurse and a member of National Nurses United.
This bill poses a mortal threat to the health and well-being of our country. As registered nurses, we recognize that this is an extremely mean-spirited and callous bill that would substantially harm our patients. Instead of kicking tens of millions of people off of health insurance, we need to move forward to the only system that will guarantee that everyone has access to safe therapeutic health care, a single-payer Medicare for all.
For Zahara Heckscher, a breast cancer survivor being treated with very expensive medicines, the GOP health care bill is life-threatening.
Health insurance means that I can do the treatments that my doctors think is best, take the modern medicines that my doctors think are going to extend my life as long as possible.
7 government employee unions oppose privatization of America's air traffic control system. Republicans in the House version of the FAA reauthorization bill included privatization. The unions, including AFGE, AFSCME, and the National Association of Government Employees, say that, quote, overhauling the entire aviation system by removing air traffic control from federal oversight and funding will be a serious setback for its development and growth. End quote. WIN is brought to you in part by the Amalgamated Transit Union, the largest labor union representing transit and allied workers in the U.S. and Canada. Online at atu.org. You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit workersindependentnews.com.
The Randi Rhodes Show is brought to you by our partners at ITM Trading. Call them at 1-888-OWN-GOLD and ask for a free gold kit. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Marco Rubio's personal finances are discredited. Oh, no, his personal finance, all you have to do is look at his credit card. I mean, he is a disaster with his credit cards. I look at Rubio, he's a lightweight. He's a lightweight. Everyone says, oh, Rubio, he's the next Reagan. He's no Reagan, that I can tell you. I mean, my hair is better than his hair, that I can tell you. I mean, I talked about Ben the other day, and I talked about his book. He wrote a book. He said he's got pathological disease. Okay. That's a problem to me. Problem. You look at Ben, he's very weak on immigration and wants to get rid of Medicare. When a man is weak on immigration and wants to get rid of Medicare,
I make him my HUD director.
He said he hit or tried to hit his mother over the head with a hammer. I didn't. Me? Mary McLeod? No way. A couple of young women took over the microphone from Bernie a month ago, right? They took it over and he was like this, huh? He is not stopping ISIS, I will tell you. So Hillary's running for a lot of reasons. One of them is because she wants to stay out of jail.
Well, she has a new hairdo. Did you notice that today?
That's called a wig.
Is that a wig?
I think it's a wig, nothing personal. Look, I'm not against wigs. People can wear whatever they want.
It's okay. But, you know, I tell you what, it really was shocking to see it because you're right. It was massive. You know, her hair became massive.
You know you're going to get in trouble now.
There, I said it! Idiot Mark Levin. Talking about Hillary's hair. Really, these were the issues of the time, right? I mean, talking about Ben Carson. Ben Carson, you know, he wanted to hit his mother over. Hey, let's make him HUD director. Let's put him in charge of housing and urban development. Yeah, because, you know, he looks the part, right? Because he's black. Chris Christie, he knew about the bridge. Let's put him in charge of opioid addiction. Ted Cruz, he's a liar. Little Marco Rubio, he's terrible with money. You know, let's get him to, vote for the new health. Let's get him to write it. Let's get Marco to write the health care bill. I mean, it's unbelievable how incredibly stupid he is. And people out there thought that they were voting for him because he's a business guy. He's a business guy who declares bankruptcy, makes money doing it, and stiffs everybody else. And that everybody else is now you. It's now you. Check what's going on with... you remember the lie that 3 to 5 million illegals voted in this election, and he was going to do a voting commission, and he was going to do something about all the illegal. Well, it never happened. Okay, that was just that was just an easily debunkable, super easy fact check that there were no illegals that voted. None. There were a couple of people in Texas that voted twice. They were arrested, and Chris Kobach found 9 old GOP voters, 9 old people. One disputed that it was that he voted twice, but the others that Chris Kobach found in Kansas were 9 old GOP voters who probably did an early ballot and then went to the polling places and forgot, because they're Alzheimer-y, God forgive them, God help them, that they went and they voted in person too. That's what Chris Kobach found. All right, so last night we find out that, that President Trump on May 11th signed this executive order that was creating this voter commission to investigate the 3 to 5 million illegals that he said, he lied and said, voted illegally. And he put Chris Kobach, the master of crosscheck. Now, crosscheck is really, it's the name you know, but it's very old. I have to tell you, I've lived through this personally. Crosscheck is something they did back in 2000. Okay, that's what they did here in Florida. That was, you remember the big Bush v. Gore, right? That whole thing. Crosscheck got its name from Chris Kobach in Kansas, but it's a very old thing. What they do is they go through the voter rolls, and they, in states like Florida, where felons are not allowed to vote, don't ask me why, they're out of jail, they've paid their debt to society, who the hell knows why they can't vote, but they can't. And so they go through the voter rolls and they find the names of common last names, like a Johnson, or a Smith, or a Katz. Do you know what I'm saying? Just common last names. And they'll look, they'll go through the felons list and they'll see that, you've got an Earl Peter Johnson. Okay. All right, so then they go through the voter rolls, and anybody who is an E. Johnson, anybody who is an E. Johnson, never mind the middle name, they don't cross-check for the middle name, just that. It could be an Earl Johnson Jr., could be an Earl Johnson III, it doesn't matter. If you're an E. Johnson, they scrub you off the voter rolls. That's what cross-check is. They cross-check it against the felons list, and they take many, many more legitimate and eligible voters off the list that way, right? As they're purging their voter rolls for ineligible voters. So that's what Chris Kobach, did in Kansas. And so Donald Trump has put Chris Kobach in charge of this investigation into voter fraud, not voter suppression, but election fraud, okay? And last night it came out on the Twitters that the former lawyer at the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice got hold of this letter because Connecticut made it public. The Secretary of State, Denise Merrill, the Secretary of State in Connecticut, who's in charge of elections in your state, is the Secretary of State. Okay, she released the letter, and the letter came from Chris Kobach, and the letter said, and he wrote it to all 50 states, saying, please give us your complete full voter roll data. all the voter data you have in your state. We want the name of every voter. We want the address, the date of birth, their party affiliation, the last 4 social security number digits, and their voting history going back to 2006. And we will make a centralized voter roll at the federal level. Now, you know, the only reason why the Russians were not able to hack the election itself, although they tried to get into the software that was created in Florida that goes into these touchscreen machines, okay? They try to hack into that so that when they put the software into those machines, the software would flip votes or erase votes or whatever, okay? So we know that happened. But because our elections are so decentralized, the Russians or any other interested party could not hack the entire election because secretaries of state in all 50 states decide the manner in which the voters will use to vote in elections. Whether it's mail-in in Washington State, whether it's touch screens in, Pennsylvania, whether it's, we still do, paint by numbers here in Florida. We either have to connect an arrow with a pen or we have to color in a dot. And we vote on snack trays, and everybody can see how you're voting. There's no privacy whatsoever in Florida. Okay, but that's all decided by the Secretary of State in each state. Chris Kobach now wants a centralized voter data roll that the feds will have, that Donald Trump will have, that his Justice Department will have, that Beauregard Sessions will have. And so the governors got very, very upset last night. And the state started to react to this letter. And, Terry McAuliffe of Virginia, he released the first statement I saw last night. He said, I have no intention of honoring this request. Virginia conducts fair, honest, and democratic elections. There's no evidence of significant voter fraud in Virginia. The Secretary of State in Connecticut, Denise Merrill, she said she will share publicly available information with the Kobach Commission while ensuring that the privacy of voters is honored by withholding protected data. But then she added that Kobach has a lengthy record of illegally disenfranchising eligible voters in Kansas. That's the cross-check story. And that, quote, given Secretary Kobach's history, we find it very difficult to have confidence in the work of his commission. Now, under federal law, every state has to have a central file of its own registered voters, and states collect different amounts based on what your Secretary of State or your state constitution requires on voters. But the files, are not for the feds to have. They're not for the feds to have. And what's really interesting about this is that Chris Kobach himself was just fined, by a federal court judge for presenting misleading information and arguments in voting-related lawsuits. A federal judge just fined Chris Kobach $1,000 for lying to the court. Because I don't know if you remember, there was a picture of Chris Kobach and he had these documents in his hand, and the documents in his hand were photographed and somebody enlarged it, and it was a voter suppression effort. And so the ACLU is suing Chris Kobach over his illegal voter suppression efforts, and they subpoenaed, these documents that he had in this lawsuit, and Chris Kobach lied to the court and said he had nothing that was relevant to their request. No documents relevant to their request. The judge asked to see the document in chambers, forced Chris Kobach to turn over the document that was photographed in the picture. The judge called in 2 other judges. 3 federal court judges reviewed the document that Chris Kobach had in his hand, verified that was the document that was in his hand in that photo, and said this is completely and utterly relevant to the ACLU's claim, and that it was evident that he had no evidence that fraud had occurred, even though he keeps representing to the court that he had, and that these documents that he said he didn't have or weren't relevant or weren't responsive to the request from the ACLU, the three judges ruled they were completely responsive to the ACLU's request, and he needed to turn them over, and fined him for lying to the court $1,000 to teach him a lesson. $1,000 ain't going to do it. This is what I keep telling you. It ain't going to do it. Now, Trump is walking around still insisting that the commission's work is necessary to prevent widespread instances of voter fraud. And guess what? There is no evidence for fraud, and the court knows it. And, you know, this is why they keep on telling him, hey, cut the crap, stop lying to the court. You know, you want to say this out loud while you're politicking. But, you know, he said, well, I have 9 people in Kansas. They said, who are these 9 people? The court said these were honest mistakes. They were older Republican voters. Most likely they voted early or voted absentee, forgot that they had sent in and went and voted in. And they were all GOP voters, all of them. All of them. But all these governors, this is why I was tweeting last night, and I said, please retweet until you hear a no from your governor. There's many, many states have said no already. I believe Wisconsin actually said no, which stunned me. But a lot of states are saying absolutely not. A centralized voter database in his hands is not a great idea with the Russia thing still out there. A nationwide voter profile. And the Brennan Center for, that looks at these issues says, why does a random member of the public need to know when you last voted and what your political party is? Access to this data in the wrong hands will always leave the opportunity for mischief. In this particular instance, I'm worried about harassment as well. That was a statement from Mr. Perez at the Brennan Center for Justice, okay? States are the stewards of this information.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force. The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Hi, welcome to Green Under Pressure, a new series on Progressive Voices. I'm your host, Susan DiGiulio, a sustainability consultant in Los Angeles. Green Under Pressure was hatched in reaction to the current administration's hostility to our urgent environmental concerns, and our goal is to empower you with great information so together we can shoulder the task of preserving our environment, and especially take strong measures against climate change, the task that Trump and his cohorts won't take on. This show will explore hot environmental issues, actions you can take, and also bring you good news from around the nation and the world, where individuals, NGOs, cities, states, and nations are succeeding in growing their economies while saving our planet. As my favorite bumper sticker says, there is no planet B. On June 1st, Trump pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord, saying it was unfair to U.S. interests and would cost American jobs. Well, we're not so sure about that. Many of the biggest U.S. companies and trade unions are already criticizing the move, saying that the largest sector in job growth is clean energy, and it's the future of the world economy. To get the real lowdown, we talked to Joe Uline, a prime mover in the shared territory between labor and the environment. For over 3 decades, he's been making protecting the environment part of union agendas and keeping the environmental movement aware of the needs of the American worker. Joe is the founding president of the Labor Network for Sustainability, and he's held key roles with the AFL-CIO and the International Federation of Chemical, Energy, and Mine Workers.
Did Trump effectively cheat America out of leadership in the global economy and make China great again instead of America?
Well, yes. I mean, he certainly did. China is going to be taking the lead on this issue as we hold back. But also the news that 3 or 4 states and 30 or so cities and 100 companies have already started to band together and have communicated to the rest of the world that, and to the UN in particular, that they're on board and they're going to keep moving forward. So you take a state like California, what is it, the 5th largest economy in the world, something like that. Yeah, and they're going to stay on track with the climate agreement. So what Trump has done, I think it is an opportunity to step it up, to mobilize the way these states and cities and companies are doing and move this agreement forward. President Trump is as phony as they come, And this idea that what he did in pulling out of that agreement is going to help American workers is flat wrong. We've always said at the Labor Network for Sustainability is climate change is the real job killer. So what Trump has done is actually going to hurt the economy and hurt job creation. Labor should be talking about that. We've done studies on this. They're state-based, but that show the jobs are going to be lost if we continue to fail to act on the global warming problem. And the other is to act more forcefully at the state and local levels. We can help grow that number of the 3 or 4 states that have already spoken out. Let's get that to 12 or 15 or 25. Labor can help make that happen. And the 30 cities, we can help make that a larger number. So, there's work to be done here that labor can be very effective in advancing the cause of reversing global warming.
Give us some real concrete examples where you have seen jobs be destroyed by climate change.
Take, for example, just temperatures rising. In construction, productivity goes down a fair bit as temperatures go above 90. So, construction, we've already seen some of this. We're going to see a lot more of it. Transportation, many of our transportation arteries are at or close to sea level. Great many airports are. That is all going to be negatively impacted. The studies that I've seen on the economic impact of climate change say it's going to be far greater than that of the Great Depression, far greater if this continues. And for, our agriculture, jobs are going to be lost. The more temperatures increase and the weather patterns change, where we grow food is going to change. California may not continue to be, center that it's been for so long. You live there, you know this better than I do, but what people have called the great water faucet in the sky, the mountains that feed California's water, that's going to become more and more scarce. So agricultural jobs, transportation jobs, jobs in the public sector, as climate change demands of us huge responses like what we had to do in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. Billions of dollars went into that recovery effort. Public service jobs are going to be lost at the same time that we need more of them.
You've been listening to Green Under Pressure, which was created as a reaction to our current administration's hostility towards our environment. Green Under Pressure is a regular feature on Progressive Voices.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream.
One of the worst Secretary of States.
Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
And we need, and I talk to you this way. I talk to you this way because that's the mentality, whether I'm nice or not. I think I'm nice, actually. So Chris, who's a friend of mine, he hit me hard. And I said, I got to hit him at least once. So I won't do this a lot, but look, here's the story. The George Washington Bridge. He knew about it.
He is a disgusting friend. I mean, if you had a friend like Donald Trump, you wouldn't need any enemies. This man is he's such a rat. He's just a rat. He's the whole family of rats. They're all rats. Every one of them.
I'm going to bomb the shit out of them. It's true. I don't care. They've got to be stopped. Marco Rubio's personal finances are discredited.
Oh, I'm so tired. I want him. I want to repeal and replace him. Can you believe he's saying that, he will just repeal Obamacare now? This is the new thing. Just repeal it. He says if Republican senators are unable to pass what they are working on now, just immediately repeal and then replace at a later date. He actually took time out from tweeting about Mika and Joe to write that. It just shows what his real agenda is, just undo anything and everything that Barack Obama did, no matter how much damage and pain it causes to you, to our country. It just doesn't matter. Repeal but don't replace. They've gone from throwing America under the bus to just pulling out the rug from under them, shooting them on Fifth Avenue, and then throwing them under the bus. So he's just going to take away all the health care and no, not even a worthless replacement. They're just going to take the health care away. This is not only disgusting, it's lazy. He's lazy, President Donald Trump. He's a lazy person. I don't know what to say anymore about it. I just don't, except to tell you I've been looking at Mueller's team. Oh, if I were Donald Trump, I'd be very afraid. And it seems to me that's what he's reacting to. The whole idea that he didn't want anybody to hear the former ambassador from NATO's testimony the other day, where he said that he is derelict in his duty to protect and defend the United States. I mean, this was really quite something. And you didn't really see very much of it because he was tweeting about Mika. But I mean, all right, let's just start with just this little bit here, okay? This is James Comey. When James Comey was asked whether or not the Russians would be back, okay? This is it.
Mr. Comey, a broad question. Was the Russian activity in the 2016 election a one-off proposition, or is this part of a long-term strategy? Will they be back?
Oh, it's a long-term practice of theirs. It stepped up a notch in a significant way in 16. They'll be back.
I think that's very important for the American people to understand that this is very much a forward-looking investigation in terms of how do we understand what they did and how do we prevent it. Would you agree that that's a big part of our role here?
Yes, sir, and it's not a Republican thing or a Democratic thing. It really is an American thing. They're going to come for whatever party they choose to try and work on behalf of, and they're not devoted to either in my experience. They're just about their own advantage, and they will be back.
Okay, so knowing that, and if given a choice between believing, Donald Trump or James Comey, that's a tough one, isn't it, everybody? Donald Trump, who's been proven to lie about the sun is yellow, or James Comey. I'll have to leave that one up to you. And then you had the Nicholas Burns, the former NATO ambassador, testify the day before he started this crazy tweeting about Joe and Mika.
That President Trump continues to deny the undeniable fact that Russia launched a major cyber attack against the United States, regardless of what party he launched it against. He's done the same thing in Europe very systematically. And yet in response to that, President Trump has refused to launch an investigation of his own. He's not made this an issue in our relationship with the Russians. He's taken no steps, at least that I'm aware of, with the Congress and state and local governments to strengthen our voting systems from future Russian hacking of our midterm elections in 2018 and of the next presidential election in 2020. There's no indication he's asked his senior cabinet officials to develop a plan to protect the United States and to deter the Russians. And his failure to act, and I'm a former U.S. ambassador to NATO, I was President George W. Bush's ambassador, we have a political responsibility in NATO to protect each other, not just from armed conventional attacks, but from cyber attacks as well. That's a clear failure. I've worked for both parties. It's inconceivable to me that any of President Trump's predecessors would deny the gravity of such an open attack on our democratic system. I don't believe any previous American president would argue that your own hearings in the Senate are a waste of time, or in the words of President Trump, a witch hunt. They're not. You're doing your duty that the people elected you to do. It is his duty, President Trump's, to be skeptical of Russia. It's his duty to investigate and defend our country against a cyber offensive, because Russia is our most dangerous adversary in the world today. And if he continues to refuse to act, it's a dereliction of the basic duty to defend the country. And Russia's going to do this again.
So then, right before he started tweeting, Adam Schiff was on the TV, and they asked Adam Schiff, did you hear what Ambassador Nicholas Burns said? The Bush-appointed ambassador to NATO, Nicholas Burns. Did you hear his testimony under oath in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee? He said that the president was derelict in his duty and that he's failing to do anything meaningful, even inquiring or acknowledging. He won't even acknowledge that Russia hacked into our election systems, that they were in our voter registration rolls, that they were in the DCCC. They did get into the GOP. They did get into our voter rolls. I keep telling you that the testimony thus far is that the Russians were able to penetrate at least 21 states. Check this out. We don't even know which 21. We don't know.
Former U.S. Ambassador to NATO and George W. Bush State Department official Nicholas Burns earlier today in Congress suggested that President Trump would be in dereliction of duty if he, quote, continues to refuse to act on Russia. That seems rather strong. What do you think?
Well, I would completely agree with that. The national security needs of the country have to come first. They certainly have to come as a higher priority than whatever effect this would have on, how he views the legitimacy or the size of his election victory.
Unreal.
That is not of what's great consequence here. What is the most consequence is preparing the country for another potential Russian interference in our affairs. Right now, the message the Russians are getting is they're not going to pay much of a price for this. Indeed, their best spokesperson is the President of the United States because he is the one casting doubt on what they did. So we are, I think, very poorly prepared if the Russians interfere in the midterms. If this president won't acknowledge what happened in his own election, what hope do we have that he will speak out when they do this again?
We have no hope that he will speak out when they do this again, because he will never speak out against the people that actually made him president of the United States. Also, you can't even get him there. Okay, because he wants to believe that this was the biggest electoral college victory. And it isn't. I think McGovern won one state and Ronald Reagan swept, 49 states. So, the man is delusional in every aspect. The photographic evidence of who attended the inauguration is there. And then he sends out Sean Spicer in a really bad suit to say, this was the best attended inauguration ever, period. It's just, so given the option of believing Nicholas Burns or believing James Comey or believing Mueller or believing, my own lying eyes or Donald Trump, it's such a hard one, people. All right. Brother David.
Oh, sister. What a week. Happy 4th of July vacation weekend to you. Mwah. And quick shout out to the chat room. Get that stinking podcast so you can binge listen all next week.
Yes. There's over 200 episodes, I believe.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's right up there with House of Cards and Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, me. Really.
I'm saying, and season 1 of The Crown, but I digress. It is so fascinating to me that Koblech, whom Kansas has been trying to get rid of forever.
You're in Kansas. Yes. By the way, David is in Kansas. Yes.
And we've had a lot of strange things this week. The biggest is the one thing that Chris Kobach pushed for. He didn't vote it, but our previous state legislature did. This week, the concealed carry on the University of Kansas campus goes into effect. Gee, Randy, college students, keggers, much bus traffic, and concealed guns. What could possibly go wrong?
All you need is a hospital.
All you need is the hospital. But seriously, this whole database thing, it just goes back to my it can't happen here sense. For like 2 years, I've been screaming about that book because it seemed like this is what's being played out. And of course, Twitler is never going to acknowledge any of this. It's why he's there. He and Putin want to be czars.
Well, they want to be oligarchs. They want all the money.
Yeah.
See, this is the problem. This is the problem. In America, if you're well situated, let's just say, right. And you're slightly political, you can have most of the money. We know that. But they're not happy with that. They want all the money. And this is where they screw up. People will let them have most of the money, but they will not let them have all of it.
No. And then this whole, given where I work, the idea of repealing the Affordable Care Act without anything in place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even want to think about next week at work. It's because people are, people who call in to try to sign up or try to change their whatever plans or whatever are already getting it. And don't get me started on the tweeting. But as you know, and I know,
the tweeting. So they polled it. Can you believe we live in a country that has to poll a question about whether or not the Trump tweets are hurting the Trump agenda? I mean, we actually had to poll that. I mean, poll this. Poll this, you freaks. But here's the number. 71% say Trump's tweets are hurting his agenda.
Well,
the other 29%, I'm guessing, think it is his agenda.
Yeah, bingo. It's the devolution of what began in 1980 when we went for image over actual, actor over statesman. But this is unprecedented. It's the quickening. That's the only thing I can figure.
It is the mind meld between entertainment and news. It is that thing, and then this whole Foxy News thing, where. I mean, everything that they say is, I mean, the questions, the way they ask their question. I mean, really, this is a news chat. The nerve of them to even call, do you think that Obama leading the resistance? And Trump actually has to correct this guy because he's gone way too overboard. Because Obama's not leading the resistance. But, I mean, this is insanity. I was looking at the cable news numbers because, Greta Van Susteren, after six little months, I mean, I got to say, what did I tell you? Andy Lack, these program directors, they sit in their office with the door closed praying nobody figures that they don't know what the hell they're doing. So Andy Lack brings Greta Van Susteren over to MSNBC, and 6 months and $12 million later, what a waste. I mean, it's unbelievable. She just found out, I don't know how she found out, her husband was on the phone yesterday going, they just let her go. We don't know. Greta tweets out something like, I'm no longer with MSNBC, and that was the full extent of it. And
that's not right.
I'm just sitting there going, what the hell is wrong with them, with these media people? I mean, they have absolutely no clue what they're doing. The whole thing is just a broken mess.
Right. They helped create him too, Randy. I mean, there's no question that
they did.
Was so imbalanced throughout the campaign.
But here's the thing. So I looked at the ratings, right, to see what are these kings of media who are being endlessly attacked by Donald Trump? What is their viewership? Okay, why is he so upset? Obviously, it's personal because on their best day, in the best hour on Fox News, they get like 2.3 million people. That's
which is a thumbnail.
It's nothing. We live in a country of 3. You used to have like Walter Cronkite. Used to get 20 million Americans watching him every single. They're fighting over 2.3 million people. It is so ridiculous. All of this money, millions and millions of dollars to go to cable news, who command an audience of 986,000 people. All of them over the age of 70. Really?
Exactly.
I mean,
well, have a wonderful time in Costa Mesa. Please come back.
Costa Rica.
I mean, Costa Mesa. I still have California on my mind. My love to the Howard and the Loretta, and you have a great, great, great vacation, dear.
Love you.
You certainly deserve it.
Love you more. Right. All right. 21 after.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Oh, Herky Jerky, guess what they got? Guess what they did for you? Oh, my God. You asked, you got 4 new flavors: original, spicy, teriyaki, and barbecue. Now nitrate and preservative free in giant resealable 14-ounce bags. You asked for this, and they created 4 new flavors without nitrates, without preservatives, in big, beautiful, resealable 14-ounce bags. Tender, small strips. Existing mild and hot beef jerky is still available for the customers who prefer that style. I love that style. But you asked for nitrate preservative free, you asked for resealable bags, and you asked for new flavors. And so now you have barbecue, teriyaki, spicy, and original. $5 off in the month of June on every pack of the new beef jerky with a promo code of BEEF. Yes, beef. Go to herkyjerky.com, enter beef.
Tales of American Political History with Clinton Porter Hackney.
We're into the story of Joseph Warren Jr., a leading character in the American Revolution. He first became a leader of the cause after writing articles attacking the British and was thereafter placed in various leadership positions. When Warren's ally Samuel Adams left for the Continental Congress in 1774, Warren chose to stay in Boston to procure arms and powder and raise militias. By April 1775, Adams and John Hancock had returned to the area and were hiding out in Lexington after discovering the British had orders to arrest them. On the afternoon of April 18th, British troops in Boston made no secret of their assemblage and plans to raid the munitions in Concord, which would take them through Lexington. After nightfall, it was Dr. Joseph Warren Jr. that sent William Dawes and Paul Revere on their famous midnight ride, primarily to warn Hancock and Adams. Join us again for Bunker Hill. This is Clinton Porter Hackney at cphackney.com.
Hello, Progressive Voices tune-in listeners. I'm Casey Hobbs.
And I'm Shane Mason, and we're the hosts of Nurse Talk Radio.
Here's what we're talking about this week.
We had an election in November that got somebody into office that is totally pro-business. So our vision of having a national nurses union that could speak up for nurses nationally and protect our patients and protect our communities is needed now more than ever.
So, for clarification, NNU is a union for RNs. What do you say to someone who might think nurses don't need to unionize?
The reality is you do need a collective voice. What unions do is allow nurses to have protection so that they can focus on caring for their patient. If you don't have a union, you don't have those protections, and in fact, you can lose your job if you don't go along with what administrators say. And it is only going to get worse because President Trump has said he does not support workers having unions, right? So nurses are intimidated and threatened on a daily basis when they are exercising their rights to form a union. They feel patient care has deteriorated, that they have no say and are not respected in their workplace. A lawyer gets paid for the work he does and is acknowledged for his expertise and experience, yet nurses are told that there isn't enough money, they need to suck it up. So nurses, which are mostly women, end up subsidizing health care just like women in public education are subsidizing our public education system.
Check out our show at nursetalksite.com and listen every Saturday and Sunday right here on Progressive Voices.
We did it, you bastards! We're live, and it only took 2 years! Okay. All right. So we're back, we're live, and you're there, and we're here, and ain't that great? Now let me just tell you that if you want to listen whenever and wherever you'd like to listen, just go to randyrhodes.com, click on podcasts and swag, and get your podcast commercial-free, on demand, on any device. randyrhodes.com. Open all day, every day.
All things Randy at randyrhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
No. All right, everybody. Ferdinand Amandi is, I think, somebody you know. He has been on MSNBC's AM Joy repeatedly. And for those of us here in South Florida, we know that he was a very beloved radio host who worked at my old stomping grounds, which was the best experience I ever had. It was WIOD in Miami. But that was years ago before they changed, chefs. And now it's just, But Ferdinand is, a first-generation Cuban-American, a Democratic pollster from Ben Dixon and Amandi. And, he just lost his radio show. And so I thought we would give him a chance to come on here and just vent about, the media and politics and the 2018 midterms and the Twitters and Scotty Mednick, our new producer. Hi, Ferdinand.
Hey, Randy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm practicing my Spanish in the car because I'm going to Costa Rica and, I'm trying to get my R's together.
Muy bueno, Randy. Muy
Gracias. Bueno. Gracias, hermano.
Wow, I sound like a Cuban almost.
No, you see, that's the thing. I don't think people understand. You guys have this Caribbean accent that makes it very muy difícil para mí.
Yeah, we like to eat our T's and our G's sometimes. And,
you got that Castilian thing going on.
And watching too many repeats of Scarface on USA Network and A&E over the years.
Meet my little friend.
Yeah, man. Anyway.
Yeah, man. Anyway, Ferdinand, I know, I don't even want to probe about what happened there because I used to work there. I know exactly what happened there, and it's just a crying shame. And I also know what it's like to be a token, in the giant stable of conservatism. And then we eke out this little time slot for ourselves, give it everything we got for like no money at all, and we succeed. And then they go, oh, crap, succeed. Oh, there's success here. Get rid of her. So I don't even want to go there. I just wanted you to talk to me about, the attack on the media and what do you think is going to happen in 2018 in the midterms? I mean, where's your head? Because you're a pollster, so.
Randy, I'm hoping for the best, but the numbers unfortunately tell a different story. And I think now, look, let's just start with President Trump. I mean, what else needs to be said except for the fact that he is obviously, Randy, unwell, unfit, and beyond help. What I think is more frightening when you look at the numbers is knowing that and being as abundantly clear as it is, there are still anywhere from 35 to 40% of Americans that continue to support the work that this unfit, unwell, beyond help person is doing as in his role as chief executive, as president of the United States.
Perhaps
that really is the most frightening thing of all, Randy.
Well, perhaps they see a little bit of themselves in him.
Well, whether that is or not, I think for a lot of us, the concern, even in the run-up to the election, was not that Trump was running close, but the fact that he was even in the conversation at all. I mean, this should have been a 65-35 wipeout in the popular vote and in the Electoral College. That was not what we saw. And in the post-Trump reality, now that he's president, it is even worse than even the biggest cynics, like all of us were, thought it could possibly have been, Randy. I mean, it has been not only an unmitigated disaster, it has been one where I think more and more we have to recognize the fact that this is a president that is being utilized as a tool of a hostile foreign government. And Randy, you who are in media, you've worked all over the country. I'm going to share some news now with your viewers. This just broke a few minutes ago, and this is not hyperbole. I'm not making this up, unfortunately. This is very frightening and very true. There is a radio station in the Washington, D.C. market. This was an FM station that has just been purchased by the Russian government to utilize to put out pro-Russian propaganda in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. This is being reported in The Hill and other mainstream media papers, talking about that literally a Russian radio station has taken over a Washington, D.C. station, 105.5 FM, which previously aired bluegrass and country music in the market. Mm-hmm. That's where we are in this country today, Randy.
You know what's really crazy about that, Fernand, is that foreign ownership of radio stations has always been prohibited in the great United States of America until February of 2017.
Gee, I wonder what happened then, because believe it or not, Barack Obama, President Obama, one of the last acts he did as president in late December of 2016, to your point, was to issue a rider in one of these executive communiques talking about limiting the scope and penetration of anything that even resembled foreign propaganda. And here, to your point, Randy, you have in February of 2017 this new administration overriding that, and you now have the Russian government, Russian state propaganda, having acquired access to American airwaves. And if I weren't a little bit more out there today, I would say this is the type of things that you see in other countries that is always the beginning and building blocks of a coup d'etat. This is where we are in America today, Randi Rhodes.
No, I agree with you, Fernand Amandi. I mean, it is interesting that the whole movie Working Girl. Remember that? It was about that. It was about the fact that there was a foreign owner that wanted to come into the United States, and they wanted to buy a radio station, and you couldn't do it. Couldn't do it because foreign ownership of radio was always prohibited because it is so personal, because it is so local. It was supposed to be, right? And so she she, finds a way to get them into television, right? To get them into TV. And that's how you get Rupert Murdoch owning Fox News. Because people will go, that can't be true because Rupert Murdoch, he's not American. And you could own TV. You could not own, and cable TV. But you could not own the public airwaves. You could not own radio. But that all did change in February. When Donald Trump became the president of the United States, he instructed the Federal Communications Commission to allow foreign ownership. And at first they were talking about, Australians, And now, yes, you see that they took over. And it's interesting that they went after the country music station in Washington, D.C. Gee, I wonder which
I wonder
group
what the target audience is there, right?
Yeah. I wonder who's finds that appealing during their day driving up and down Pennsylvania Avenue. But it is something that's obviously occurring. This man is the Manchurian Candidate. I mean, supposedly you had to be brainwashed, by a playing card or some such thing to trigger all the, little bombs they put into Frank Sinatra's head to be. No, this guy just walked right in the front door with all this loyalty to an adversary of ours. And now he's doing things to help them propagandize this entire country. Hey, did you see that story last night? About the Chris Kobach voting fraud committee. 3 to 5 million illegals voted, Fernand. You should know that. You're a Cuban. But this Kobach voting commission wants to centralize all the voter registration rolls because it was so difficult to hack them one by one.
I did see that, and as ominous and as George Orwellian as that very act is, talking about 1984, I was heartened to see, Randy, what some of the governors in some of the key states around the country are doing in response to that.
And they're telling
no further than New York. I don't know if we can use non-FCC words on this podcast, but Governor Cuomo basically said "F you" to the Trump administration. They're not going to play along into the mythos that there was any problems with the folks voting illegally in the election. He wasn't going to comply with the request, and I think that's exactly the type of actions that Republicans and Democrats, Randy, of conscience need to be doing when it comes to requests by this administration, who I think we can fairly say right now is tainted at best and at worst acting as a puppet for a foreign government.
Yeah, they call it active measures, and this president is doing active measures so that they can centralize the voter rolls for the manipulation of voters' IP addresses. This is such a mass voter suppression effort. That's what they said in Connecticut. I mean, their Secretary of State Denise, she said, really, Chris Kobach, he's the bastion of he's the guy I would trust. She said she called him, every name in the book and said, he was shady and she wouldn't trust him. There's no way. New York said no. Connecticut said no. Terry McAuliffe in Virginia said no. I mean, everybody is saying no to this request. This is a ridiculous request, but that they would make this request under Chris Kobach or over Chris Kobach's name tells you just about everything you need to know. And if that doesn't motivate Americans, it's so funny, but sometimes here in this country, these spoiled, rotten kids, they just don't know what they got till it's gone, okay? So I tell them watch Handmaid's Tale, so you can see current events unfolding on Hulu. But they need to understand that they need to vote in this midterm because they don't know, they won't understand what they've got until it's gone. And it's almost gone.
Well, Randy, how many times in the past have folks like you and me and others, and I think with legitimacy have said in prior elections that it was the most important election in our lifetime, and I think at the time it was correct. Randy, is it fair to say that the 2018 midterms coming up, perhaps, arguably, could very well be the most important elections, not just in our lifetimes, but in the history of the United States of America if we do not give control of one or both of the chambers of Congress, not even necessarily to the Democrats, but to members of those chambers that are adamantly opposed to the Trump doctrine and to the Trump administration? Is that a fair statement? Because I think it is.
Well, I have this theory that all elections are the most important elections of our time because they pertain to things that are happening in our time. I mean, the idea that we had civil rights litigation, that we, in the 20s we had women's voting right. I mean, it's always very, very important. But in this particular aspect of it, we have an insane man in the White House with his, insane clown posse trying to take away basic freedoms from everybody that were so hard fought for because people did take voting seriously. The reason why it seems so important and so like such an emergency now is because people don't show up, Ferdinand, and we don't get representation, and we are gerrymandered to the point where 33 to 40% of the United States can get 60% of the seats because of the gerrymandering. So that's why it seems like an emergency. However,
Randy, I think that's right. But if I could just counter for a second, because I think one of the mistakes that folks on the progressive side of the aisle are making is in trying to continue to pit this as a partisan issue. And what I mean by that is not to suggest that the current Republican Party leadership in Congress doesn't seem to be complicit with the president. They are. Okay, so let me just get that off the table. But I think there are many, I would even say there are millions, if not tens of millions of Republicans of conscience, independents of conscience, certainly Democrats and progressives of conscience who are patriots before they are partisans. And I think, Randy, the battle line that must be drawn for the 2018 midterms is not really Republicans versus Democrats, but rather patriots versus these Trump-Putin supporters, which are those right now that unfortunately we see making up the better part of the Trump administration. I think unless we put it in those terms, because there are going to be Republican primaries in Republican districts, and hopefully they will be elected in those Republican primaries in those Republican districts, Republicans that oppose the Trump agenda. And unless that happens, that's when we get in real trouble, and let them make us fight amongst ourselves as patriots before partisanship.
Well, I'm not a party person. I'm kind of with you about that. I think our party is old. I think our party is, what was the quote from Politico, that our party is 80 years old, the leadership is 90 years old, and Congress has become an assisted living center. I mean, I really wish I would have written that, but I didn't. Some anonymous person in Politico wrote it, and I really do feel that way about our party. But, this is the problem, I think. The problem is that the right keeps moving further to the fascist, oligarchical right, and the left just stays in the middle. Yesterday we were talking to Richard Wolff. He's a economist, educated Harvard, Stanford, a double degree from Yale, teaches economics, and he was saying, the same thing that I say all the time, and that is that, the parties are done. They're really, really done. The Democrats, when they get in power, they do things so incrementally that people don't feel that, they don't feel anything has happened, even though it's stabilized, or we clean up the garbage from the, Republicans who crash the economy and the Republicans who steal your house, your 401k, they love to create chaos amongst us, because in chaos they can steal, and they know it. And like I said, most Americans are not happy, but they're willing to let the top 1% have most of the money. They're just not willing to let them have all of the money, which is what the right keeps doing, is moving to steal the rest of the money. The Medicaid trust fund, the Social Security trust fund, the Medicare trust fund. This is what their little fingers are into now. And they keep voting for that, and they keep getting that. The left is so afraid to be progressive. And that is why Bernie Sanders was able, a 74-year-old man, was able to capture the mind and imaginations of millennials for the most part, because he told them, we have become an oligarchy. We have to be more progressive. We believe in a single payer plan. We believe that all students that go to public colleges, it should be K through 16, if that's where your mind will take you. We ought to support that. We ought to grow us from the bottom up. That's the message. But, the Democratic Party is not spouting that message. The Democratic Party never governs that way. You had Bill Clinton triangulating. One of the reasons why you ended up working at one of the great radio stations of all time, WIOD, which isn't WIOD, it's a mere shadow of its former self, is because Bill Clinton deregulated the entire radio industry and cost us at least 100,000 jobs. And now 8 people own every radio station in the United States. So that's what Democrats do.
Well, I think you're 100% on point, and I think this does help explain why we certainly saw greater passion and intensity in the following of Sanders versus the Clinton camps, and it was a genuineness, a sincerity, and a sense of fight, Randy. And that's what I think, to the extent that there is a silver lining about this just tragic, horrific Trump presidency, is that it has inspired people to drop with the mealy-mouthed, focus group-tested messaging language and start to fight for their values in a real way, and whether those are progressive values or even American values. But yeah, the next person who captures that spirit and isn't afraid to act and govern and campaign and fight like the Democrats we remember growing up, and certainly we remember reading about in the history books, whether it was FDR or Truman or Kennedy or Johnson, that's the type of person I think you're going to see build a national coalition of support to ride into the White House. But I think we're done with the triangulation, as you talk about. I think we're done with that Republican-light style. I think people are looking to be inspired by what they see happening and the stark choice that this president is presenting this country today.
Well, I think the last great president we had was FDR, and I don't go down the road with you for the others, but the last great one we had was FDR, and that's why we have the first 100 days as a measuring stick, because that guy saw America suffering and said, there's plenty we can do, and we're doing it. And his first 100 days, he created the Tennessee Valley Authority, and he created, unions and the WPA and all these things, and put people back to work and meant it. Nobody's meant it ever since. Everything else has been a deal. Everything else has been, well, I'll give you civil rights only because I saw, what happened, when Martin Luther King Jr. was put in jail. We saw it as an opportunity. Nixon reached out to Martin Luther King Jr. and tried to get him out of jail, and it didn't work for Nixon. He couldn't get him out of jail. That's when Kennedy got interested in civil rights. Okay, so I'm not a big fan of the modern Democratic Party. Haven't been for a really long time. I'm an old-fashioned FDR girl. I wanted FDR. I thought Bernie sounded like FDR. I thought he meant it the way FDR meant it. I believe that he would have been able to, do the things that he said he was going to do if we would have given him the correct. Speaking of Congress, didn't little Ileana Ross-Lehtinen retire down there where you are, Fernand?
Well, she certainly has suggested that she's not going to run for re-election.
Then what are you doing?
What do you mean? What am I doing?
You personally, look, let's just face it. You're stunning. You're Cuban. You're smart. And, you have TVQ through the roof. Why don't you run for Congress?
Well, Randy, before I run for anything, I got to figure out, what we're going to do about this country and what the best way to fight for this country is. Because I'll be honest with you, Randy, as the son of Cuban exiles, I feel like I've seen this movie before, and I am as concerned as anybody about what's happening in our country. As I said at the top of our segment here, we've just gotten news that Sputnik, the Russian state propaganda station, has bought a radio station in Washington, and I am prepared to do whatever I have to do as an American who loves this country, who grew up and is grateful to this country, to defend this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic, Randy. So I'm not considering right now or even thinking about running for Congress, but if I will explore whatever opportunity is on the line to defend our country.
I want you to run for Congress.
Thank you for your support, Randy.
No, here, check this out. You run down there, and I'll run up here, and we could do fundraising together. So, because we're going to need I think you need $3 million to even be considered viable.
Wait a minute. Are you saying we're going to do it like a slate? In that case,
yeah.
Former radio hosts of the world unite. And I might be interested in that case, Randy.
Fernand, what do you think Mike Pence is?
That is exactly
what do you
right.
think Steve Bannon is?
Ronald Reagan, remember?
No, yeah, but he only, yeah. But I'm serious. I'm really serious. I mean, Mike Pence is a degenerate, local talk radio host from Indiana. Bannon was on Sirius XM. I mean, they're all talk hosts, all of them. Donald Trump is a reality TV star, for the love of God, for the love of Pete. So, yeah, I'll run, because my congresswoman is Lois Frankel. Haven't heard a peep out of her. Haven't heard a peep. So, yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, I get Scotty Mednick, though. I get Scotty back on the campaign if we end up doing it. No, I'm just kidding.
Fernand.
You got the best radio producer in the world now with Scotty Mednick. You got to feel good about that. You sure you want to leave now? You got a great gig. You're making tons of money. You got
Whoa. Check this out. You don't have to leave. If you're not on the public airwaves, you can keep your radio. It's not radio anymore. If you're on the internet, you could have a show and run for Congress. You just can't. You
what
just
a great
can't be.
way to talk to the constituents that way, right?
Bernie does it. Bernie's got his own radio. It's not radio. He's got his own internet show. You're allowed to do that. It's the internet, baby. And second, I must take you to task here because I raised Scotty Mednick. I raised him in my own house.
I know you did.
Yeah.
You did a great job. And
Thank you.
We perfected him over there at our show, and now you got the fruit of all this labor. The Randi Rhodes for Amandi training. Now you got the young Jedi is now the Jedi Master.
And yes, exactly. That's right. Snatch this from my hand, young grasshopper. You did do a great job with him. He's unbelievable. He always has been. He's just been. I've known him since he's 15 years old. He literally did grow up in my house. So and I've only had one fight with him, and I've apologized because I was wrong.
But Randi, I do want to say something serious about the point you bring up because we were having a little fun about the idea of running. But I think what is absolutely critical, Randi, is in these 2018 elections, which you and I agree, the most important elections we're going to see in our lifetime, and I think the most important election in the country's history, we need a bunch of Americans who are as outraged by what we're seeing to do what a lot of people thought was unthinkable before, was to run not just for Congress, but for every office up and down the line. I mean, if there's ever been a time to get out there and put your name and your experience and your passion for progressive values on the line, this is the time to do it. There's plenty of time. There are plenty of offices, and I would encourage everybody listening, everybody in the millions of people who listen to Randi Rhodes around the country and around the planet to really think about, if you're an American, running for office and putting yourself out there, because we need good men and women to serve this country and to truly take it back and make it great again. Because right now, under this president, America is not as great as it was 7 months ago.
Take your own advice. I'm serious.
Keep pushing.
I adore you. I'm so glad I finally got to meet you. We bonded over Scotty. This is how I got to you. But I've been watching you on AM Joy because I love her. I just adore her. I don't really know her all that well. I just love her. Greta got let go yesterday after only 6 months, and they're going to put Ari in there, which is, okay. But I tweeted last night that if they put her on 24/7, their ratings would go from less than 1 million to like multiple millions. But they're, this Andy Lack and this Phil Griffin guy, I don't know. But I think you're wonderful, and I would hope that you would be willing to get in the car and drive to my little studio here, and I'd love to talk to you about being my fill-in host when I go on vacation, so you could run for office, maybe do a little fundraising of your own, kind of goose that little idea.
Well, Randi, like every good South Florida boy, I did my tenure in Palm Beach County. I lived in Boca for 4 years and in Highland Beach. So I'd love to get back to the PBC and the 561 every now and again.
We'd love to have you. I'm a big fan, and I adore you, and thank you so much.
I am as well. It's great to be with you, Randi, and congratulations on truly having the best podcast in the country. Must listen to. Thanks so much for bringing me on.
I love you. Thank you. That was very kind. Thanks.
Take care, Randi.
You too. Fernand Amandi, everybody. Amandi. I used to love listening to him. Grace, you're a fool. He can't say it. I can. Take a drink.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Hey, do you own gold? If you don't, you're in a bad position. Stocks are at an all-time high. Gold at recent lows. So maybe to you it seems like things are going great, but I can assure you if another stock market crash comes, if another 2008 happens, are you protected? I don't think so. Don't wait until after something bad happens, because then stocks fall and gold goes up. Get gold now while it's low and diversify your portfolio today. Because once you have gold in your portfolio, you can rest assured you are protected. So call my friends at ITM Trading at 1-888-OWN-GOLD. They're experts at diversifying investment portfolios with precious metals. They can help you in building a custom strategy based on your goals, your objectives. Please don't follow the herd and don't wait till it's too late. Take action today and bring safety to your financial future. Call ITM Trading today at 1-888-OWN-GOLD and speak to a precious metals expert and ask for a free gold kit. 1-888-OWN-GOLD. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
Here's a sample of what you'll hear on The Leslie Marshall Show each Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern on the Progressive Voices Network. Maura Callison is Managing Director of Health Policy at American Progress, and in this capacity, she plays a leading role in America Progress health policy development and advocacy efforts.
I think that the fact that they're calling this the ACA repeal bill is just outrageous. They're really not only ending the Medicaid expansion from the ACA, but they are completely restructuring the Medicaid program in a way that is going to limit how much the federal government can help states cover people, and it's just going to harm millions and millions of people.
When we look at the harm, let's break it down. First of all, so that people understand, the mandate was necessary because one of the reasons we needed health care reform, and I'm married to a physician, I know this very well, is that the hospitals, the ERs, were overburdened with people coming in, and they were overburdened in three capacities. One, not enough staff to take care of the volume of patients coming through the door. Two, when the patients came through the door because they hadn't had annual checkups of preventative care, they came in at critical mass. When you have one person who's critical, that takes a slew of individuals away from the rest of the people. So longer wait times, which can result, as we saw with the VA, with many more problems, health-related problems. Also that there were less healthcare professionals to provide for the slew of people coming in the door, and hospitals closing, especially in rural areas where they need the healthcare, even more because they're living in impoverished conditions in many of these rural areas. So we're just basically going back to one of the original problems with just that individual line item alone, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and the mandate not only really helped, well, the mandate along with especially things like the Medicaid expansion really helped hospitals, and most of the hospitals that have been closing in rural areas are in states that did not expand the Medicaid that did not expand their Medicaid programs. But I think the thing that people also don't realize about the individual mandate is that it's part of, and I'm sure you've had people talk about this before, sort of like the ACA you can think of in terms of the individual market reform, so the private market, not the Medicaid piece. It's sort of based on three legs of a stool. You have what we call guaranteed issue in the health wonk world, which basically means if you apply for insurance, you can get it. You can get it the same terms as everybody else, and you don't pay more because of pre-existing conditions or how healthy you are. But if that's the case, then you need to get more people into that insurance market because you need to spread out your costs. And so that the mandate helps that too. And then if you're going to require everybody to purchase insurance, you also need to help people afford their premiums and their cost sharing. And that's what the ACA did in giving people advanced tax credits to help pay their premiums, and for lower income people, additional help in paying their copays and things like that. So, the CBO basically said that next year we could see premiums go up by 20% just because the mandate is not there. So it's not just, it's a real pocketbook issue for everybody. I think that's one of the things that I want to flag for people is there are parts of this bill that will affect everybody in America. If you have employer-based insurance, you're not safe. If you have Medicare, you're not safe. This really upends the entire healthcare system, and it was done with speed and secrecy.
Hear the whole story on The Leslie Marshall Show every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern on the Progressive Voices Network.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, housekeeping, everybody. Housekeeping, Monday, July the 3rd, we will be on vacation. We will be on vacation Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we will be back Monday, July the 10th. So that's it. The 3rd to the 7th, we're off, and then we'll be back on the 10th. Very short. Sean in Santa Paula, Mexico. Hola, ¿cómo estás?
No. Santa Paula in Ventura County.
Oh, I thought you were in Mexico. I wanted to get in the mood. I was going to try and hablas en español contigo.
Sound like somebody's already got their mente in Mexico, eh?
Sí, mis dedos de pie en la arena.
Bueno. Yeah, I know you only got a couple of minutes here left in the show. Thanks for taking my call. Wanted to make one question. Why isn't it that the healthcare advocates aren't harping on we're only as healthy as the sickest among us, you know?
This is what I learned in the military too, Sean.
I don't hear that conversation.
It's true because their language is so lame. I got to say, and this is the problem that we have in the Democratic Party. That's just like I said, we got 70-year-olds, reporting to 80-year-old leadership. The House of Representatives has become, some sort of an assisted living center complete with a gym and, daily activities. I mean, it's just so old. It's so old. What I learned in the military is simple. Okay, people want to know. Like when they find out that I was in the Air Force for 6 years, they go, well, you have a weird way of showing it because they've never served. They don't understand. What you learn in the military is you are only as strong as the weakest among you because the weakest person can get you killed. So your job is to reach down and pull that weak person up and get that weak person to perform at the best level that person can perform at. It is for your own safety. It is for your own protection. It is for your own good. And that, my friend, is classic liberalism.
Right, I understand. But in this case, when we're talking universal health care, Randi, we're talking on avoiding epidemics, pandemics.
Absolutely.
People who do not have health care are a much greater risk to the rest of us, getting us sick. And they want to keep the chaos up so they can steal, like you said.
Yes.
And what did Will Rogers said that the crooks are halfway around the world before the lawman can even get their boots on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I like what you always saying is also this isn't your father's Republican Party, right?
Right.
This is the GOP. These are the gangster-owned puppets, international gangsters who own these GOP operatives.
Yeah.
Now, anybody who wants to bring back the old Republican ways, fine. Let's hear your reasonable arguments, right?
Richard Nixon started the EPA, for God's sake. I mean, you're right. This is fascism. This is oligarchs trying to steal all the money in the world, all of it. Now, the idea that should never be lost on anybody is how did Russia make out with that system? Well, the ordinary Russians make $450 a week. And the oligarchs are worth multiple billions. That is where we're going. That is where we're headed.
There you go. And you've got this Chris Kobach. Oh, and by the way, the document was photographed, I believe, by a British journalist, Greg Pallas, and his people when he was doing his documentary film, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy.
Oh, no, he's not British. Greg's
I know he isn't. He was working for the BBC, though.
Yeah, he works for BBC.
Rolling Stone also. But they ambushed Kobach at an ice cream social.
Right.
And
right.
It was wonderful. The other thing is, when you don't have health care, the drug addiction counselors will say you self-medicate.
Listen, I got to cut you off because we're done. I'm on vacation. I can't be. I wanted to say I love you. Buy a stinking podcast. See you July 10th. Buy a stinking podcast. Yay. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.